Hey guys, for today's video, we are going to be talking about Open Back Headphone. Now, this is an Open Back Headphone. This is the Beyerdynamic DT990 Pro, and it is wired, right? As opposed to the usual stuff that I talk about, which are wireless, like this WH1000-XM4. So let's dive right in. So as per usual in all my videos, I try to give you the answer up front. So if you don't have time to stick around, it's okay. You just take the answer and you go. All right, this is an open back headphone. And what it means is that this portion here, it actually lets in sound from the outside. So you will be able to hear sound and noise from the environment. Conversely, it also lets sound out. So whenever you're playing some music, if there are people around you, if you're taking public transport or you're working in a quiet office, somebody will actually be able to hear your music, especially if you're blasting out quite loud. This is as opposed to a closed back headphone, which basically all the padding and this portion here, it doesn't let any sound come in, and neither does it let sound out. So nobody will be able to hear what you are listening to. And of course, closed back headphone has the advantage of blocking out sound so that you hear only your music and not the sound, and you don't have to increase the volume of your music just to drown out the external sounds. But of course, it means that you are quite unaware. A lot of headphones today, including this top line Sony, is noise cancelling, and they actually have two levels of noise cancellation. One is passive. Passive meaning because it's closed back, it doesn't let the sound in. The padding is also quite plush and it sits around your ear, covers the whole ear, and it will actually block out most of the sound. So what is active noise cancelling? Active means there is some circuitry inside, some magic inside here, which when you engage it, it will listen to the sound from the outside and generate an anti-wave to counter that sound, effectively cancelling the sound from the outside. So when these two, passive and active noise cancellation, works together, then it provides you a very quiet listening experience, and you'll be able to enjoy your music quite well without having to resort to pumping up the volume in order to hear your music above the drone of the bus or the train or the plane. Have you taken a plane recently? I haven't. Well, yeah. So that's the idea of a noise cancelling headphone. So a lot of noise cancelling headphone, I dare say all noise cancelling headphone are actually closed back. So closed back, major advantage, it blocks out noise, it blocks out sound. So open back lets in sound. What are the advantages of having an open back that lets in sound? So I recently have a use case for it because I have been doing a lot of video editing, and when I put on my headphones, people creep up behind me and they startle me because I can't hear them coming. I can't hear people calling me. So even if I were to use this pair of headphones, even if I don't do noise cancelling and I attach the wire, it still blocks out quite a bit of the sound. And of course, all these noise cancelling headphones, most of them are actually wireless. So you plug out a wire, you engage them, you connect via Bluetooth or any variant of the Bluetooth protocol, you'll be able to hear music wirelessly. But wireless headphones, in this particular case, they have a slight lag. And when you're doing video editing, that doesn't help because the sound is not matching up with the video. So it causes a slight delay, even a few milliseconds, say, even if it's below 100 milliseconds, you're talking about 1 or 2 frames behind. So the lip sync becomes an issue. So I try to avoid using these wirelessly when I'm doing editing of the video. But it still doesn't solve the other problem of me being unaware of the surrounding. Now, moving on to the DT990 Pro. Being an open back means that I can hear people coming up to me. I can hear it when my wife or my kids are calling out to me. So I don't seem to be like out of this world to them. So that is the one advantage. But for critical listening, for most listening when there is some degree of sound, of noise in the environment, actually the closed back works pretty well. So the other thing that you got to take note is that when you look at this pair of headphones, it is wired firstly, and the wires are actually attached. It goes to a phono jack where you plug it into your computer or your mixer or your MP3 player or your phone via dongle, of course. For most phones today, they don't have the 3.5mm phono output anymore. When that happens, you have to be mindful of the impedance of the headphone. This particular pair here Well, the DT990 Pro has a few versions. One is relatively easy to drive. I don't remember, I think it's 32 ohm. This is the 250 ohm version, and there is also a 600 ohm version. Now, there are no electronics in this except for the drivers. So there's no noise cancellation, there's no battery inside that you need to power or charge, and there's nothing at all, no DSP. It is an analog pair of headphones, as opposed to this, which receives digital signals via Bluetooth, right? And it actually has to convert that signal from digital form into analog form. So whatever sound profile, whatever sound signature you're going to be hearing is actually dependent on the headset itself. As opposed to the DT990 and this particular pair of open back headphone has zero processing. So whatever you're feeding it through this analog line out, right, is exactly what you're hearing. So if your MP3 player or if your music player is not putting out enough power, then it won't sound as good because there's no power inside to drive the drivers. You need to have a pretty strong preamp, or at least a headphone amp, all right, to drive 250 ohms. I plug this most of the time into the Rodecaster mixer, and that has a pretty powerful output stage. So for most times, it is great. So of course, I've discussed the major disadvantage in that it lets in sound. It's not always that letting in sound is a good thing, but if you need to be aware of your surroundings, say if you're walking on the streets and you need to be aware of bicycles or other pedestrians or even cars when you're crossing roads, then an open back actually helps. You know the Apple AirPods Pro, right? They are noise cancelling, but they have a transparency mode. So transparency mode actually does exactly that. It lets in sound. In fact, it amplifies the sound from the outside and plays it back to you real time so that you can be aware of your surrounding. But you need a lot of trickery and electronics wizardry to actually achieve that. So with this pair of DT990 Pro, you actually don't have any electronics to amplify the sound from outside to play it back to you. So by design, by construction, it actually lets in the sound on its own. Of course, there is no circuitry to block out the sound as well, so you've got to bear that in mind. That is a con, I would say. So it is a disadvantage that most people shy away from open back headphones. Now, the major advantage of an open back headphone is the fact that the soundstage is much bigger, right? If you're comparing the two, this sounds like everything is right at your ear. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing because it really depends on your listening preference. If that's what you want and if that's the kind of sound signature that you prefer, then yes, I think that will work very well for you. But if you are after soundstage, I would say that nothing beats an open back headphone. Now, the first time I put this on, well, qualifier. Actually, I have a lot of headphones at home, and most of them, I would dare say, almost all of them are noise cancelling, and a lot of them are close back, even if they are not noise cancelling. And I did buy a pair of Sennheisers, which are wired and close back. I wanted to use it for monitoring, but it didn't solve the problem of me being unaware of the surrounding. So back to this guy, when I started using this, the first time I put it on, I was like, oh my God, the sound stage from music, it is tremendous. I actually did a recording, and how I record, I will explain later, but I did a recording of this pair of headphones playing back some music. I'll attach it at the end of the video, so if you stay around and stick around till then, you can have a listen to that. The recording is fantastic. I'll tell you, I figured out a way to do recording of music from headphones playing. So whatever you are going to be hearing is exactly what I'm hearing. Teaser, I actually stuffed 2 mics into my ear. Let's talk about that in a bit. But before we go on to that, I'll talk a little bit more about this headphone. I actually started enjoying this tremendously for music. I started listening to a lot of orchestral music. I started listening to a lot of vocals because the soundstage is just wide. And I'm not saying that electronic music or deep bass music doesn't sound good. It does, but you do have to ensure that you have a relatively quiet environment so that you don't get a problem of the external sound trying to attenuate the signals that are trying to reach your ears for the music. Now, to give you an idea of how this sounds like, I will do my usual frequency sweeps. Now, the frequency sweeps that I usually do, I use a omnidirectional mic. It is a relatively expensive digital mic. It connects via USB. It picks out the signal, and usually I use that to measure speakers, right? Where placing the mic somewhere in the room or a short distance from the speakers, it actually picks up the response from the speakers and it works. But if you are trying to use the same mic to try to measure this headphone, then where are you going to put the mic? You know, you can't put it up against the driver. There's no way to seal, right? Because when you're listening to it, it actually provides an acoustic seal. Not that because it's an open back, it shouldn't seal. You should still seal properly to get a proper measurement. Even if you were to do that, you'll be picking up a lot of room noise rather than the sound that is coming from the headphone. So what do I have today? I'm going to show you something. This is something pretty interesting. This is a binaural microphone that is from Sound Professionals. So if you look at how this is shaped, it is meant to go inside your ear. So one for the left ear and one for the right ear. When you start wearing these and you stuff them inside your ear, basically when you are doing the recording, when things are being recorded, you as the user, as the listener, as the viewer, will be able to hear exactly what I'm listening to. So basically for this test, I have actually done the frequency sweep with this as the input mic and measuring the sound that is playing from the headphones. And I dare say that I have looked around on YouTube. I don't think anybody is doing this. I don't think anybody is even recording the sound that is coming from a headphone using this. So this is how I do it. I stuff it inside. Okay, I'm not doing it properly, basically just to give you an idea. And after I stuff it in, I actually wear the headphones over. And when I wear the headphones over and I'm playing something, it actually records through this binaural microphone here. I think it sounds pretty silly and it's probably gonna look stupid. I have already shown you how stupid it might look, but don't worry. I'll go through the frequency sweeps and you have a better idea of what it sounds like. Okay, so this is the frequency sweep that I've done earlier. Now follow my mouse cursor. Okay, don't follow this particular cursor because for some reason it's being wrongly positioned. Just follow the crosshair that is moving, the long crosshair, not the small little plus sign as the cursor, right? So this is the frequency sweep. On the left, you have 20 Hertz and it goes up all the way to 20,000 Hertz. This is 20 kilohertz here. Now, if you look at it, it is not an entirely flat frequency response. And the peaks are actually on the high side. So if you look at this particular peak here, it peaks out at about 12 to 13 kilohertz. And what 12 to 13 kilohertz means is that it actually plays the treble pretty bright. And it correlates with what I was experiencing because this is meant to be pretty airy. And when I listen to the music on it, it actually comes through as a very bright sounding pair of headphones. Okay, there's a dip here, which is between, I would say, 300 Hertz all the way up to 3 kilohertz. And most human voice, male and female, will fall roughly within this range. So that is slightly recessed. And if you think of it in totality, the treble is actually pretty pronounced. The bass is actually also performing quite well. For open back headphones, they have a tendency to be anemic when it comes to bass, but the bass coming out from this guy is actually pretty smooth and controlled. Now, I am using it to monitor. So if it is monitoring, I would have preferred it to be flatter than this, but apparently it is not as flat as some headphones, but it does provide you an opportunity to enjoy the music because of how it actually sounds like. So I'm actually loving the sound that's coming from this pair right now. And if you ask me a choice between the WH1000-XM4 versus the DT990 Pro, I would say it's a hard decision. I would actually listen depending on my mood, depending on whether I need to shut the outside world or not. Both headphones, actually, I derive great pleasure from listening to music from them. But for audio editing, for video editing, I actually use this pair of open back quite a bit more. Firstly, wired. Secondly, it allows me to be aware of the surrounding. like I explained earlier, I still need to know when my kids are creeping up from behind me. So the other part of the frequency response, if you look at it, I would say that the in the normal range between 20 to 20 kilohertz, 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, this particular part here is the probably the lowest response, then it starts falling off. So this is at about 111 dB as measured, right, from the mic. So don't take it as the absolute measurement, but as measured from my setup here. And if you look at a minus 3 dB, let's look for the 108. Okay, this is about 108 hertz. And if you look at the response here, this is 22, 23 hertz actually. So minus 3 dB, 23 hertz, actually this plays bass pretty well. So these headphones were launched first in 2004 and it has been 17 years and they're still making this guy. I didn't go for the 600 ohm version because I don't actually use a headphone amp. I have a headphone amp which I don't actually use much, but I didn't want to have the inconvenience of having to deploy a headphone amp. So I'm going to plug it in directly to my mixer. So I chose a 250 ohms one. And because this cable is springy and it's the extensible type, it's not something that I will be bringing out anyway. Not that we are going out a lot nowadays. So yeah, 250 ohms seems to be the perfect balance between sound quality and it being hard to drive or not. Okay, so this is the frequency response curve. Not the flattest, I would say pretty okay. And the takeaway is that the treble is phenomenal on this guy. So you get pretty good treble response. The bass is not weak either. So if you are in the market for an open back as well as a wired headphone, simple analog without any technology or electronics wizardry, without external mic to measure noise cancellation, having to charge battery and all that, there you go. I highly recommend this pair of Beyerdynamic DT990 Pro. So before the end of today's video, I have recorded some royalty-free music, of course, coming from this pair and using my binaural microphones here. So I had them shoved into my ear and I then put these pair of headphones over. The recording came out to be extremely clean, extremely clear. If not for the fact that it is a little bit soft, I will probably increase the volume a little bit in post-production so that you can hear clearly. But it is mind-blowing. And I think I will use this method to test headphones moving forward. Now, of course, it is only for headphones because I still need to put this in my ear. So if it is earbuds or Apple AirPods and all those kind of earpiece that you need to shove inside your ear, then obviously I only have one pair of ears and they can't occupy the same space. But for this, for headphones, and if I were to rerun some tests for the Sony WH1000, oh God, why do they have to make it so long? For the Sonys, then I might release a video. So let me know down in the comment section below if you are interested to hear that. But before that, try listening to these passages and you should be quite blown away. Okay, thanks. And that's all for today's video. I will see you in my next video. Enjoy the sound clips.